Hello and welcome to That's Over Everything podcast. This is the podcast where we receive stories, tips, and tactics from entrepreneurs who have done it. I'm Alex, and today we are talking to the CEO and president of Langton PR. Daniel, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Most definitely. All right, so to kick things off, I have an icebreaker for you.
Yeah.
And I actually want to do something a little different.
Okay.
Because in PR is a lot of public activations. You know, a lot of things that happen that's either a good activation or something that's not so good, right? So I want you to rate some PR activations. Is that what you call it, PR activations? Is that what...
Yeah, activations, projects, events, programs, yeah.
Perfect. I want you to rate them out of 10 and give the reason why, all right?
1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest?
1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest.
Okay.
All right, ready for this? So KFC names or puts forth the idea we should name the Toronto women's basketball team the Toronto Buckets. 1 out of 10, which one do you rate it?
Like 4 or 5.
4 or 5?
Yeah.
Well, why do you rate it 4 or 5?
I don't know. I'm not feeling it. You know, like I'm all about women's empowerment. I think they could be something else. I think it's just meat is a commodity. Meat is meant to be consumed. And I think if you associate that with women, I go into other political realms. And then, you know, we talk about disempowerment, empowerment. So I think it's a great play on words, 10 on that. But I don't know if I would want to, you know, a women's soccer team is, you want to empower those women to be.
This podcast is brought to you by Narai Cellars Wine, one of the only black-owned wines in Canada. You already know what to do. Hit the link below and scoop up not 1, not 2, but a case of wine. This is the white Field Blenders wine. So make sure you go scoop that. Hit the link below and visit naraicellars.ca. Let's get back into the show.
Strong to be powerful. I don't know if associating that with like meat and products to be consumed is the right thing to do, because women have always been seen in that space. You know, they have never been appreciated, and I think we're in a new time. So that's what I think. But I love the play on words though. I mean, if we could have done it somewhere else, like, it would be great. Yeah,
for sure. You know what I rated? -1.
So I'm being nice.
You're being nice.
I'm being nice.
Because you know what? I could see exactly how this went horribly wrong. Because they probably like, oh yeah, buckets, we get buckets, you know, KFC buckets. This works perfectly. Do you know what buckets means in Toronto slang?
No.
A bucket means an addict. Like, a bucket means, like, you even have the term buck tea, which means, like, an addict.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Like a homeless person.
I'm still getting used
right?
to the slang.
A bucket means, like, yo.
But then again, it's somewhat derogatory.
Very derogatory.
Still, it kind of hits what I was saying, that it's disrespectful to an era. It's a great play on word. I'm still getting used to all this slang, though.
Yes.
I'm old.
A bucket is insane. Insane. So KFC, definitely not. All right. So let's move on to number 2. I have 2 more for you.
Okay.
Next is Revolt.
Wait, what is that?
Revolt Network. The Diddy's network.
Oh, I don't really engage.
Never heard of Revolt?
No.
Okay, so Revolt is one of the biggest media platforms.
Is it? I don't know about it, so I don't know about that.
All right. So Revolt, it's in America, so it's not in Canada. So
there you go. I'm still not in tune with pop culture, FYI, but you'd be surprised that I'm in tune with some things and I'm out of tune with everything else. Okay. But I never even knew he had a network.
So Diddy had a network called Revolt. Of course, he's not owning and operating it, and of course, with everything going on in Diddy's world, he's done. Big done.
Everyone's revolting.
Exactly. So the company is now under the same management, but no head of the company. And what they've done is given ownership to the employees. So the employees can now buy into the company, have equity in the company. And they've just announced this, and it's been a big hoopla because everyone's like, wow, instead of having a one person buy, instead of having Tyler Perry buy, instead of having, Oprah buy it, the employees are now owners.
Okay.
How would you rate that 1 out of 10?
I mean, so I'm giving this answer
with all the context that is
with all the context that you have given me. I don't think it's a bad idea to share with the community, because I think all the people, I mean, if I could do that with my company, I would. You know, I'm not in a position to do that yet. But, you know, when you hire staff, you're building a community. You're building a group of like-minded people who think and feel a certain way, people who support the idea. I mean, you would hope that the people that are working for you are supporting the idea and helping that mandate move forward. So I think, why help the rich get richer? They have so many other ways of getting richer and owning things. I mean, Oprah can go and buy whatever she wants. Tyler Perry's just going to end up opening a new production house or owning something else. Why not give it to the people who are there helping you build that up and give them a chance? Especially with everything happening in Diddy's world today, I think some give back somewhere is great. And I'm sure that as much as he owned it, somebody else's mind was really running the creativity behind it and pushing it forward. So why not give it to the community an opportunity? I think it's a great opportunity. You just have to be responsible. Like, I hope there was a good hiring process in place. And, you know, this reminds me of when I was a barista at Starbucks. They would give me shares in the company, and I thought that was great. Like, I was at university, now I had shares at Starbucks, and you can cash them out. Or, like, I thought that was great. It's a great incentive. Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like the people that work at Starbucks...
Also, wait, I never gave my number.
Oh, yeah. So
wait, I'd say that out of the context I was given, like, 8. Only because I don't know if they hired responsibly, and I don't know how that process is going to play out. So I'd give it, like, an 8.
Got you.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to put it back on you. What was the last 8 you saw and the last 4 you saw?
Oh, my God. Like I said, I'm still out of tune with everything. I think... Oh my God.
It's a good one, isn't it?
It's good because I'm not, you know, like I see things and I appreciate them, but I'm never always attuned in terms of a rating system. I think, I gotta think about that one.
You gotta think about it?
Yeah.
All right.
So, I actually, you're gonna cut this. I know my answer. I just don't know the campaign name.
Okay.
It was like Purdy's Chocolate. Like they had done a campaign. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Purdy's Chocolate.
Yeah, let me just pull it up on my phone actually.
Okay. You know, as it comes to mind, one that
Dion, do you mind passing me that? Sorry, I don't want to move my position. You can pass me that on the phone.
What I think that was really good is DoorDash and Keith Lee. That has been one of the best partnerships I've seen in a long time. Because it's so seamless, and it just feels like I'm watching a Keith Lee video. There's actually nothing different than in the content, so it's a seamless partnership. You know, Keith Lee and DoorDash. That's one of the ones I feel like is like an 8.5 to 9. You know, in PR.
So okay, this one. Okay, so I can answer it. So, so Purdy's Chocolate, Canadian chocolatier, they launched a campaign called Reconnection Roulette, or Roulette Reconnection, and it was about reconnecting and creating stories of being connected with the idea of giving and having something sweet during the holidays, reconnecting with your family. I thought that was smart. I know you had mentioned just a celebrity campaign. I tend to shy away from celebrity campaigns. I don't always think they're the best.
Celebrity? You know what? I guess he was in a celebrity
Because you're going to always get attention. To me, the idea is when you have to build it from a grassroots level and you create... Okay, Purdy's Chocolatier. Okay, I'm sure they've millions of dollars and they've got world-renowned chocolates. Everybody's buying them, whatever. But they didn't have to rely on a celebrity to get the message out. They relied on organic interactions. Let's create this campaign and encourage some reconnection. And it did well. And I liked that because it got people to interact with the product and it got people to interact with the lifestyle and the culture and the intention of the product. And that's what I like. That's what I try to bring into at least my campaigns too. Not just to rely on the next person who's really just going to bring their celebrity to your stuff. And maybe you create some commercials and stuff like that. So we already know there's going to be attention when it comes to celebrity work. I like the grassroots stuff. Yeah.
So for people that are looking to have a good grassroots campaign, you know, because there's two people that really look to create PR events, the small business entrepreneur and the big business entrepreneur, right? For the small business entrepreneur looking to really create a nice grassroots campaign, what advice would you have for them?
You know, I'm definitely a small business in the world of PR. I'm definitely not that corporate Fortune 500 company or have 100 employees. So I'd say that's very much my experience in the boardroom. And I think, you know, when it comes to being grassroots, you have to really just rely on your organic instincts and how you would interact with the product. So what you think about the product, what it tastes like to you, what it feels like to you, and then use that as a basis of inspiration to create engaging interactions. Because the idea of PR is that you want to create an engaging interaction point so that you can engage with the public, not just put out a bunch of key messages, right? So I always rely on how I see the product, what I've seen the product do, and how I would use it. Now, the great thing is that we work with a lot of premium beauty brands. So, you know, I can tap into the female energy very nicely. I can be like, you know, this is how I would use this. This is how I would use that. And, you know, a lot of times we do things out of the beauty space as well. And I really rely on my experience. Now, with that said, I think the smartest thing someone in my position can do is, okay, we'll go to a group of people like my staff and be like, this is what I think, this is how I feel. What do you think? How would you interact with it? And then when you kind of create that sort of germ for a thought starter, it gets everybody talking in a certain way, and then you get the best ideas that way. So you have to be grassroots about approaching a grassroots campaign. You know, you have to come back to, I think, very traditional ways of thinking and feeling about a product or an idea. That's what works for me. I'm very much a feeling first person. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Now, we were talking earlier, and you were talking about back in your TV days.
Yeah.
Because before you were CEO, you were a content creator, you were working in TV. What was that portion of your life like?
You know, it's very interesting because I am very comfortable, and I can say that, you know, who's sitting in front of you today is who Daniel was always meant to be, and that will change. I think when I had started working in television and doing content creation and kind of doing that TV public entertainment kind of work, I was very much still discovering who I was. And I have found myself in this position in many times in my life where I'm doing something I have not been trained for, or I'm doing something that I've had no prior knowledge in. I didn't graduate with a degree in journalism. I had a bachelor in arts, and I had a master's in communications and culture. It had nothing to do with journalism and TV production and hosting or red carpet interviewing. It had nothing. I was literally discovering it for the first time because somebody had faith in me and decided to give me an opportunity. So I was too busy trying to like fake it till I maked it, and too busy trying to figure out the ropes. So it was, I'd say, a time where I learned a lot of the discipline and skills that I use today to fuel my PR career. So I'm very grateful for the experiences. But I'd say it was a very hollow and empty time. There wasn't a lot of feeling in what I was doing. There was feeling in terms of anxiety and fear and stress, but I don't think anything... I think I was in a place where I was a plus-size person of color, and the space was controlled by a bunch of white people, you know? And then there were your token people of color who had certain positions, who I admired, who had probably worked really hard to get where they were, but you weren't seeing many more people like them. So I didn't really think I had a chance at it. I was just going to do whatever I did. I was going to take the opportunities I had, and hopefully it clicked somewhere else outside of this. That's what I thought was going to happen. That's what did happen. I didn't think I was going to have a successful career on TV. I just didn't think the space at the time was meant for it, you know? I don't think people knew how to understand this gay plus-size brown boy. You know? I think, you know, her name was Veronica Chill. She's a bestie of mine now, but when she had sort of seen me and sort of given me an opportunity, I think she understood the power of that because she wanted to have that in that South Asian entertainment platform that she was hosting at that time called Bollywood Boulevard, and it meant something there. It was powerful. But I think outside of that, there were many different versions of me who were also thin and white and who fit the quota or the status quo. They were going to take them first. You know, I was always going to be the funny one in the room that everybody loved being around, but nobody would ever see them as a perfect choice for this show. And I understood that, and I think that was a sad fact because I understood that. I was there long enough with some hopes and dreams, and I realized, okay, this is just not going to work. This space is not meant for it. But I knew I would matter elsewhere. So I'd say that's a long answer for that question. I'm sorry, but I think it was full of a lot of, you know, choices and experiences and learnings. Let's say that's what that time was like for me. Yeah.
So what was the transition from that into PR?
So, you know what? So I was producing for a digital platform. I was doing a lot of beauty segments, you know, talk about the top hairstyles, celebrity inspired makeup looks, fashion. I was going to a lot of lifestyle events. We were doing menswear too. So through that, I was able to work with a lot of PR companies and their brands. So one of the relationships that I had built quite strongly is with a girl. She was an account manager at Langton at that time. Her name was Maxine. She and I became friends, and she became the vice president of Langton at the time. Shortly after, and I was already working with a lot of their brands. So when the digital content creation and was sort of transitioning, I had a couple of challenging experiences, and I was like, okay, it's time to just put this to rest right now. I need to discover what else I need to do. In my head, and after talking to a couple of my friends, I thought PR was a great unilateral move. I've got all these connections and all these relationships, but I don't really have an opportunity to do anything with them yet. If I go to PR, I have a way to leverage what I have here, and I can make it happen. And I saw a posting for Langton at the time for digital media manager, and I applied for it, and I got it. And it was like joining a family. And I was there for 7 years before I became CEO and president. Yeah.
Now, that's very interesting. Congrats on that.
Yeah, thank you.
I know it must be.
So, I mean, that brings me back to that point that you can see how all that experiences was still connected, maybe not directly, but doing all that still opened me up to Langton, opened me up to working with these people and building contacts. So I was able to matter elsewhere, despite not being able to make it somewhere else.
Yeah, it's almost like you're developing transferable skills.
Yeah,
that was still like mattering a lot to Langton, even though you weren't there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And what was like your life like at the time? Like growing up. Are you originally from Toronto?
Yes, born and raised Brampton.
Okay.
I mean, born and raised
Shout
in
out
the Jane and
Brampton.
Finch area.
Shout out Jane and Finch.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then moved to Brampton.
Okay.
Around grade 2.
Yeah.
And then pretty much raised in Brampton.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I moved to Vaughan for a little bit with my mom.
Yeah.
And then pretty much still kind of in that North York Vaughan area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Now jumping a little ahead, we're jumping around a little bit. When it comes to PR right now, right? I'm hearing a lot about companies pulling back budgets, and a lot of creators are wondering where their journey is going because of the new landscape in our society. What is your take on that in the current landscape of beauty brands working with creators on the in the ecosystem of creative deals?
So, I mean, scaling back budgets, that's just a reality in PR. I mean, it's not just now. It happens all the time. So we're used to it. I'd say in the marketing world, PR agencies and owners are probably used to it the most.
Yeah.
It's the first thing to cut. It's the first thing to put to the side. It's the first thing to deprioritize. But I think the space, I mean, listen, I joined PR in 2017. That was at the crossroads of digital and traditional media at that time. Great. A bunch of magazines had just shut down. A bunch of shows had just shut down. I finished in TV because we were all laid off from a show that had finished.
Rogers was just selling off their properties.
So it was a changing time. We knew that TV was changing, but we didn't really know what was happening. We knew that there were influencers. Everybody was starting to invite them and do certain things, but they weren't really embraced fully into campaigns at that time. So if you think about it, 7 years ago, we've made huge strides in the industry, but I still think as an owner, it's such an unstable and ever-changing space. Even the influencer element of it is changing all the time. That's why I really rely on certain people who, Sarah Kunar from Platform Media, I think has done it the best. Like, I really rely on her and I see what she's doing and I see her as a source of how to work with influencers the best way possible. And what I like about Sarah, so if you don't know Sarah Kunar, owner, president, CEO, madam in charge of Platform Media, she, I think, really prioritizes that organic, authentic relationship. And at the end, like I said before, that is the true essence and the golden nugget of PR and marketing. You're trying to connect with people. People are smart these days. Nobody's stupid. You can see ads, and we were sold on so many things in the past, but with the surgence of social media and the awareness the younger generations have, everyone's very aware of what you're feeding them. So I think that being as organic and authentic as possible is the way to go. And I say that because I do think things are going to continue changing. We've had content creators. I don't like calling them influencers. I call them content creators because they really do work on their craft. I've seen, just to say influencers, to me implies that you just have influence because you might be popular or people like you on social, and that is true. But on top of that, there's so many people who are so artistic. I've seen them create content better than pros that I know.
Yeah.
And I love the way, and I engage with people because I love the way they curate their lifestyle. Like, I'm inspired by these things. Yeah. So, but even then, I think they are at a disadvantage as well because they're trying to work with brands. They need to work with us in order to keep their content alive. We need to be able to work with them because we want to be able to get our authentic and organic messages. But then we're all at the mercy of these budgets. And we're all at the mercy of whoever is deciding to scale back a couple of zeros on the bill or the expense that month. So I just think it's about really understanding what the client is trying to achieve at the end of the day and who the best people are going to be to match that message. You're not going to be able to work with everybody. You're not going to be able to satisfy everybody. But you can make a good, honest effort at creating a campaign that works. And I think we just have to be as tailored as possible. Unfortunately, what that means is we can't always activate on a mass scale. Like, I've got beauty brands that everybody wants to work with, but the reality is I'm only given an X amount of units to work with of product. and then I'm only given an X amount of budget to activate against. That's the reality. That's work. We've got limitations everywhere. But I think if you create experiences and you talk to people and you get to know them, you slowly always understand who's going to be best for what. And I think that's where that's why I like doing events. Not everybody always has budgets for events, but I like events because you end up getting people out that you would have never normally brought onto a campaign because of limited budgets or quantities. But then you understand a little bit about what they're doing. They get a chance to introduce themselves, you meet them, and you understand that, hey, on paper, this person may have not made it onto the criteria, but I actually think that they're good at what they're doing. And you kind of bring them on that way. Yeah. So again, a long answer, but my point is that there's no one way of looking at it. Yeah. Every brand is going to want to do things differently. I've got brands that are very strategic in terms of paid campaigning and creating ads, and I have some that just want to interact with the community organically. It's still a very open space. Yeah.
Now, it's funny you bring up events. One thing I actually want to dig into is proving. Actually, my initial question was on proving ROI to brands for events. Yeah. Right? Because I think that's like a tough thing to really adequately and monetarily justify a lot of times. So what's your process of describing ROI to a brand? And is it usually in an awareness play? Is it usually like, all right, you're going to get an X amount of return? How do you talk to brands?
Okay, so that has been traditionally very difficult for PR agencies to do, because in my opinion, that doesn't mean that our work isn't valuable. It's just that you have to be able to convince your clients to understand and see things in a particular way, right? Because PR is a feeling. It was never really something tangible. Now, okay, you've got impressions, you've got metrics, you've got ROI. They're all a bunch of inflated numbers with multipliers. What do they actually mean, right? So I always say PR replaces nothing but complements everything. So that means that I need to synchronistically work with marketing departments and the people who are involved with a certain campaign to make sure that what I do complements and amplifies everything that's happening. Unless you're a creative PR agency and then you're running a campaign originally and that has something else. Ads, that's mostly an awareness play at the end of the day. It may have some interaction as well, but I think that's traditional marketing to a certain element. I think with PR, you have to work to amplify all your clients' objectives, whatever they are. So if they have an XY launch and they're going to do an experiential activation here, well, who are we going to get into the experiential activation to get those messages high? You've got an X amount of product, who can we give it to? How can we come up with a concept? And that's what it is. And I think I'm lucky enough that I can call my clients friends. And I can have very honest conversations with them, and they can have honest conversations with me, and I can discover what's important to them. Because the brand as a whole, listen, we're in Canada, right? So the brand as a whole globally might have a mandate, but in Canada, that could change. So it's important to me to speak to that brand manager to be like, okay, what are you looking for here? And then I lay out a plan on how to best achieve that, right? And also, we're at this crossroads, again, where I feel that everybody wants the media attention, but they want to invest more into the influencer side of things or content creation. And it's because everybody has a lack of patience, They want the immediacy and that gratification and satiation you get from seeing that product awareness play on social amplified, but the return is very hard to manage there. You know what I'm saying? Unless you work with content creation agencies that can help you determine what those metrics would be. And we can do those metrics too, but you're not going to be paying 1,000 people to talk about your product. That's just never the reality here in Canada, right? You're going to have an X bucket that you talk to from a paid perspective, and then you're going to send out organic for a mass awareness play, right? So I think as long as your client and you have a very healthy conversation and you understand what success is, then you can, tailor something. That's the best way to measure. At the end of the day, the numbers are numbers. I don't really think everybody can understand and pinpoint it. I can tell you that we've had 100 million people walk through the door or see this. What does that actually mean? You didn't make $100 million in sales. So, I think numbers you can only report to a certain extent. It's important to me to make sure the client feels that the campaign was successful. And what does that feeling mean? What's required to make that feeling happen? And then, of course, I've had the most success in that way, to be completely honest with you. My clients, I would say, are happy. And also, we've been able to create campaigns that matter, And Shea Moisture is a perfect example for that, because I've been able to do so much community work with Shea Moisture. And yes, okay, they're selling shampoo and hair care preparations, and they have so much. But when they ask me to conceptualize a campaign, I always go for feeling and community first. And that's how we've had the most success with that brand. And I really encourage others to do it as well. Yeah. Or I work for a company, but one of my clients is Clairol. Everybody is afraid of at-home hair color, right? But we used it as an opportunity to create excitement and confidence on how you can do it yourself at a fraction of the cost, but still sort of have that salon element at home. It sounds very basic, but it took us convincing, a certain group of influencers to really give it a try because it has so much stigma. But they walked out feeling great. And they realized that, okay, they just had a bunch of fear connected to this product. So it comes down to the most basic things. Did I answer your question?
You did. Yeah. Because it is a bit of a tricky situation when it comes to that, and really proving the worth for the campaign, And I want to pivot into events, because, I'm a big event person, and that's one thing I'm really getting into outside of the company. What makes a proper event campaign,
Okay, so that really depends on what kind of event you're doing. There's small scale, there's a large scale. There's never a direct answer.
Okay.
There's exclusive events for media and influencers, and then there's experiential events, right? So I think when it comes to a PR has a lot of exclusive events from media and influencers. That's to introduce a campaign, that's to create a mass awareness play if possible. And to me, the best events are the ones that get guests to interact with the product in a meaningful way. So if I have a shampoo, it's not just about, getting your hair washed that day and walking out with a new hairstyle, but what are the ingredients in that shampoo? Maybe I can serve you some canapes and some drinks inspired, bringing the product to life, so to speak. I think when you can create that element of interaction, everybody's so much more interested in what you're trying to do, And so many brands do that. And then when there's an experiential element, that's more like, let's get the public involved. Then you want to be able to give them an experience connected to that product, not just to come out and get a coupon and a free product.
Yeah.
So, this summer we're doing something called Shea Summer. The Shea Summer. When is this releasing, by the way?
Within a week.
Okay. So this summer, actually at the time that this is probably releasing, and then in July we're doing something called the Shea Moisture Shea Summer Salon.
Okay.
So we want to give people an opportunity to come have expert consultations, find out which Shea Moisture products are good for them. Because textured hair care is tough during the summer when you're sweating and you want to play mass at Caravana. You want to take care of those curls and coils. So we created an opportunity for everyone to come and get a quick hairstyle with industry experts and expert hairstylists and get the consultation they want to use the right product. Now that is great for an experiential element because it gives the consumer, somebody who would have never normally had this interaction, the opportunity to come down, learn something, and walk away something that's going to work for them. So I like that from an experiential point of view. I don't think any brand has done anything experiential that doesn't have that element there. So you want to be able to let them interact with your product in a meaningful way. When it comes to media and influencers, when I go back to that first example, we're spoiled. We get so many free things, we get access to all the different events. But the best thing to engage that crowd who's seen and felt and experienced everything is to give them a feeling around that product again. So it all comes back to feeling for me. If you go to it. Because if you have to buy into, once you invest in that element, then it's good. It's like dating. You could be good looking, but if I don't feel something for you, then that relationship is not going anywhere. The same thing with products. You have to establish a relationship. Yeah.
Got you. Now, when it comes to feeling and connecting with influencers and creators, right? A big element right now is UGC, right?
Yeah.
But AI is really coming at UGC right now. So I'm curious to get your take as someone that hires creators. Where do you see the UGC versus influencers and AI going in the future?
So, we're at those crossroads right now in terms of the content that's being produced. Honestly, I see them both existing. I've seen a lot of influencers incorporate both. Or content creators, I should say, they're incorporating both. And that's the content that I think is going to stay. I've seen some of these content creators do the most unique videos. I've seen these products move in ways I have never seen these products move. I've seen them displayed in ways I've never seen them displayed. And it is a combination of UGC and AI. And I love that sort of marriage between the both. I think one's not here to replace the. I have to say, I've used Google's Gemini, and then I've used ChatGPT. it is great when you're in a time crunch to come up with some really eloquent copy and some punchy lines. I have to get in there and still edit it and still make it mine.
Yeah.
That level of
you can't just
touch
trust it.
is you can't just trust it. That level of touch is required.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening between AI and UGC too. I think the best is when I see these content creators infuse both of these things together, and I see the best content out there.
Yeah.
I don't see one over the other. I think there's a space for both as we move forward.
Matter of fact, I have a question. I actually asked Roberto Blake this. He's a tech creator on YouTube. And it was an interesting thing that he gave me. So I'm interested to get your opinion too. So we had a question from the audience where a creator is a UGC creator, and he was going to work with a company to do UGC content for them. Mm-hmm. But in the contract, it said they would get full rights in perpetuity to all the content. Mm-hmm. You know, what's your opinion on that for a UGC creator? Something that's small, just getting started. Should they take something like that where they give away all the rights in perpetuity, or it's something that they should be pushing back on, or be, hey, you know what, you're just starting? Why not?
You know, okay, so I'm of two minds with this because obviously I work with a PR agency and I work with clients where we're negotiating these contracts all the time. So I definitely think like Sarah Kunar at Platform Media has seen this a lot more than I have because she's working exclusively with content creators and people being hired to create content. I think for me, as a person of color who needed to hustle in this world, I did so many things for free. I spoke to a bunch of people I probably didn't need to speak to. I walked through a bunch of doors I really didn't really have a place or business going in there. But that's how I got where I got.
Yeah.
I went to so many different events. I did so much and I hustled to get where I needed to go because I needed to build relationships. And I would say you can't devalue that. Now, that doesn't mean you give away everything for free, or that doesn't mean that you have to judge what's best for you. Because I was put into positions where I'm like, okay, is this relationship and connection going to be worth it for me? And can it give me more in the future? And then if it was that case, then I didn't have a problem because I knew that there was going to be a payoff somewhere else. And that's always served me right. I have very rarely been wrong about that because I listened to my gut. But at the same time, you also don't want to be taken advantage of because I don't think it's fair. Yeah.
So what was the moment? Give me a moment where you were like, oh, this is crazy, but screw it up.
Well, it happens with a lot of, I'll give you the most basic example, a lot of hosting gigs. You end up working for organizations or events that are working with really small budgets or don't have any budget at all, but they want to be able to work with you because they think your personalities fit the aura and the atmosphere of what they're trying to do. And I really sort of go in and see whether that opportunity is for me or not. Now, sometimes you know whether you're going to be the one contributing the most to the opportunity, but a lot of these opportunities came to me when I was new and I was struggling and I really needed to get myself out there. So it was a lot of live events and award shows that I was asked to host, sometimes for a very small fee and sometimes for no fee at all. But I showed up, did my best, looked like $1 million, got every single business card in the room, networked, and those contacts still exist to this day because they didn't know what my arrangements were with that organization. They saw me front a very eloquent speech. They saw me front for a very, luxurious event, and they associated respect with that. And they associated a certain level of professionalism with that. That's what they saw. That's what they got sold into, and that's what I honestly was there to sell to them. My professionalism, my ability to do this. And then I got so many other paid gigs because of it. But you have to be sure of what you're doing in the moment. Now, I definitely can respect that, once you've given enough things away for free at some point, that thought process needs to turn something in return to you. So you have to be able to judge it. So the entrepreneur in me says that I got here because I did things like that. So I encourage people to make that call for themselves. But I also don't think that agencies and brands should take advantage of people, especially if you have paid a fraction of the price. Like if you paid $1,000 to get a UGC to create something and now you want rights in perpetuity, I mean, that's a little unfair. I do think that now if you paid them $20,000 to create that piece of content, then perhaps there is a give and take.
That makes sense.
And in all honesty, when it comes to those type of contracts, a lot of those content creators might be okay with doing something like that. But you can't buy something for $1 and expect $100 in return. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah. Fair.
So it's a two-faced answer, but it's important for me to speak from the business owner side of myself, but then also and the marketer, and then just being an entrepreneur. Because the entrepreneurship journey is a hustle, you know.
For sure.
Yeah.
1000%. What's a normal day in your life like?
Although it's never the same. I definitely wake up and have a cup of coffee in the morning.
Okay.
Bottle of water and a cup of coffee. That's probably the most consistent thing I understand. Otherwise, I'm at the mercy of the day. Honestly, there could be a crisis here. I probably get and help support the staff or the campaigns in another perspective. There's an event to run. There's an event to attend. There's calls to have. Calls. Oh my God, calls and meetings consistently. I actually, one of the first things I said to myself when I started in PR, I was like, I've never spoken on the phone as much ever. I had so many meetings, unless I ended up in PR. Until I ended up in PR, sorry. So that's pretty much the day for me. I think I struggle to get my food in sometimes. I share that because that's what life be like sometimes, you know? I get my coffee, I have to remind myself to have lunch. I have to remind myself to have enough water in the day. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm hustling from call to call, from event to event, meeting to meeting.
All there.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that I find that with people that are in PR is they are all the way in. Life, when it comes to balance in life, it's like, it's all work usually. Yeah. Do you find yourself balancing it out?
Once you start drinking the PR Kool-Aid, it's really difficult not to. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And once you get immersed into that world, it very much is this sort of, organized chaos. I mean, if you're organized about it, it could be organized chaos. Otherwise, it can just take your life over. Yeah. But it's because there's so many things happening at once. There's so many things that you need to balance at once. I personally don't try to achieve balance anymore because it's impossible. Yeah. So I don't want to constantly face this perspective where I feel like I'm not accomplishing something or I keep failing at it. Yeah. I'm just like, I'm not even going to bother establishing balance. Let's just reprioritize what needs to get done, and I tackle it one thing after the other. The amount of people that actually need to follow up with me to get something done, nothing gets done without a follow-up in PR. They say the power is in the follow-up. Yes. And it's true. I've needed people to follow up with me in order to remember that I've had to do something. These to-do lists and post-its only do so much. Yeah. You only do so much, and this little brain here can only handle so much. So you try to have good relationships with people and they understand, but you're probably running behind schedule. You're probably missing a bunch of calls. You've probably missed a deadline. I mean, it's PR. It's just the way it works.
Interesting.
And you accept it.
Yeah. What advice do you have for somebody getting into PR?
Hustle. I think hustle is important.
Yeah.
And I don't say that lightly because PR is hustle. Yeah. It's, you just can't send a press release and think something's going to happen. You can't just send a press kit and think something's going to happen. You can't just invite somebody to an event and think that's it. You're going to get the coverage you want. Mm-hmm. You have to get in and you have to hustle. You have to build relationships. You have to talk to people and you have to be real about it. You can't just be out there with an intention to get something without a return, And I think those are the worst PR people and marketers that I've seen. You're just there for something transactional. Yeah. I don't want to interact with you.
Let's talk about that, because I think that's one of the big things, even as a person creating content, not to be transactional. What's the best ways to not be transactional in this world?
So listen. Most of the the approach of transactional really comes down to, I'm trying to word this in a way, like I've got really good relationships and people I can be short with and be like, hey, I need a favor. Do you think you can help me out? Mm-hmm. But that sort of transactional stuff works because I'm already helping them. They're already helping me, and we're sisters. Mm-hmm. We're brothers in this space. We're here to help each other out. Yeah. That relationship, though, took like 10 years to build, right? So, but I've got those right now, and I've got them because I took time in building those steps. I would never just go to somebody and ask for something right out that I don't know. Mm-hmm. That's just an email then. But even with my emails, I try to create a level of conversation. Mm-hmm. So when I'm working with my staff, and they're pretty new in PR, I'm working with a new generation who's just starting in PR. The people in my position are either OGs and owning or really senior positions, or they've left the industry altogether. Mm-hmm. So with this new generation, I'm reminding them of the power of interaction and conversation, because I find the younger generation is very transactional. The Gen Z generation is very transactional to me. Mm-hmm. They come in for their 9 to 5, they work the most, they've done the most to the 9 to 5 than I ever did. Mm-hmm. But then they leave at 5 o'clock and it's done. Mm-hmm. Whereas my generation, we were hustling till 7 p.m. because there were relationships to build. So I'm not saying you need to overwork. I'm just saying that there's a mentality that's quite in and out, tit for tat, very transactional with this younger generation. And PR only works off of a relationship. Your emails will only get so far. So if you're trying to not make things transactional, you have to have building blocks. You have to have a 1, 2, 3 step process. Like if you want to get your brand onto this TV show, then okay, who are the people to interact with? Maybe I can take them out for a cup of coffee and just get to know who they are. And if you're honest about it, you probably will end up with a blooming relationship or a great healthy work relationship where they get to know a little bit about you and what you're doing. You understand what they're working with. The biggest thing I've heard from TV producers is like, do you understand the show that we're producing? Because transactional is you just email, I want to try to get this product on the show. What opportunities do we have? Did you really understand what this producer is involved with? Because all the producers have a different beat, right? Are you taking the time to understand how they are working? Because they need content, so they need you. But do you understand what they're doing? Have you taken an investment in how that piece of content is coming together? You have to take it that extra mile, and I don't think this Gen Z generation knows how to do that. So I'm teaching them. And hopefully it has ripples effects throughout this entire Gen Z population. I really do, like, they are so strong and powerful in ways. I think are you Gen Z?
I'm a Zillennial.
Oh my God, that's the first time I've heard that. Is that a thing? Zillennial?
Yeah, Zillennial.
So you're not as bad. You're not as bad.
I'm right in the.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a Zillennial. I feel like that. I feel like it.
But I think you understand what I'm saying, though.
For sure, there's a lot of people who are very
yeah.
transactional. And honestly, that's one thing I actually have to fight as a podcaster, because you're naturally gonna have to keep reaching out to people. So there's times where, oh shoot, I'm being transactional. I need to wheel this back, because I realize that like I have a need quickly, and I need to realize that I don't want to be someone that's a user ever. I need to be someone that's engaging from an authentic standpoint and have empathy towards what's going on with that. For example, like
that's good relationship advice too, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. One thing about podcasts is that we're listeners. Not many people are, especially men. But even with my guy Dion, like, he's like, yo, I'm coming all the way from XYZ here. I'm like, yo, I got your travel fee. You got a ticket, I got half of it.
Yeah.
So having empathy for what's going on in the people's life, because it makes a strong difference when it comes to reaching out to people.
It's so I read tarot cards on the side too, right? Okay. So in the spiritual
world, mostly it's a tattoo. It's a tarot card.
Yeah. It's a blend of the sun and the moon.
Okay.
So one of the spiritual concepts or ways of thinking is equal give and take, right? Because giving and taking at an extreme, they're both imbalanced ways to go about it. A giver will always feel like they're doing the right thing in the relationship or the situation, but over giving is just as imbalanced as taking and just taking, right? So I like what you've said. It's about an equal give and take. So if you're going to work successfully with somebody, how can it benefit both of you, right? So same thing with PR. If you're going to work with media or influencers, how can you both interact with each other and see what comes from there? And sometimes that also involves understanding that maybe something can't happen now, but it can happen later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. Now, there's going to be a lot of people here, because one thing about PR, the barrier to entry is at the crowd. You see chalk on the ground, the barrier to entry to get into PR is right there. You can just hop right into it.
Yeah.
Right? Set up a company, set up a GoDaddy, boom, you're a PR company, right? When it comes to PR, what separates the good people from the great people?
I think that's a big question. I think when I look at it right now, the good people are the ones who just get the job done. The great people are the ones who are trying to change the world by getting the job done and having it mean something outside of what they're doing, And I understand that as a PR owner and as an agency, to a certain extent, you're going to have to rely on the clients that you work with and the work that they do to help you. I use Shea Moisture as a wonderful example there. Shea Moisture has allowed me to find ways to give back to the Black community. And the Black community was very supportive of me and my journey of coming into my sexuality growing up. Because, I'll say this to you. When I was growing up and I was being teased for being gay, it was only the 3 Black girls in my grade who ever defended me. They were ready to fight everybody and beat them down, and I remember them. I know their names till this day. And I didn't realize it, but then when I started working with Shea Moisture and we were giving so much to Black female entrepreneurs and the the Black females of the community, I was like, wow, like this is such a wonderful way for me to now do some purposeful work in this community, because this brand isn't about just giving you good hair. They want to support the initiatives that you're doing. They want to support the entrepreneurs there. They want to provide grants and education and opportunity. And I realized that my life beautifully connected in that way. And it made me think about how lucky I was as a PR professional to have this brand at this stage in my life matter personally and professionally. And so we're grateful as PR professionals when we get clients like this. But then when we don't have these clients, and we have clients that are, just doing marketing initiatives that might not speak in such a big way, but are still effective, then how can you create that level of purpose within your staff? And so what I also did, because I only had Shea Moisture for 7 years. There was a time where I was in PR without a Shea Moisture. And I say Shea Moisture and clients like that. They're not the only ones, but I make an effort to understand my staff. I make an effort to care about them and understand their personalities and manage them from that process. And I realized that if I was going to create purpose and power in what I was doing and be great, then it was going to be in inspiring a young generation of PR professionals to be that too. I wasn't, and you have to put your ego aside from it. So the great people are not ego driven. The good people they want the awards, they want to get the job done, they want to have the most ROI, whatever. But the great people are the ones that are doing it for different reasons, that are getting all that done, but more. So, and I realized that I can't have an ego about this, that if my work was going to speak for itself, it would, but I had an opportunity to inspire a young generation without preaching and giving them an opportunity to showcase themselves. And that to me is the real greatness that I think PR professionals can have. And now I just, in that pursuit to be great, I've also taken on a lot of mentees, so I could be a mentor for those wanting to create, those students that are people of color who want to create a positive and a very successful future in PR as well. So you have to give back, I guess. If I put this all down into one simple way, it's to be great, you have to give back. You just can't get the job done. That took a while too. I'm so sorry. We're going to have a fun time editing this. Yeah.
No, that was solid. Solid. No, I can agree. I think from what you're saying, the real difference is impact, from what you're saying. Creating something that impacts people versus just as a transactional, even when it comes to the brand expectation, one that's impact-based versus ROI-based only. That's very interesting, man. What do you hate about PR?
I don't know if I hate anything. I might grow frustrated with the ever-evolving pace.
It's a strong word.
Yeah. I think I might grow frustrated with the ever-evolving pace of the industry, because just when you get something right, and then it stops working and there's a change, and I've got to pivot.
You have a lot of clients, too.
Yeah. I think when I say pivot, I remember that one episode in Friends where they were like trying to move the sofa down a really tight circuit, like pivot. Mm-hmm. So it's the change. It's frustrating, but it's the only constant. And I've had to learn to embrace that too. That doesn't mean I'm not mad or bitter about it, but change is the only constant. And you have to be ready for that in PR. Things can change tomorrow. And I say that to my staff too. It's like, you can't get too comfortable. Things can change at the drop of a dime. So that's frustrating, I'd say. Yeah.
Gotcha, man. Now, one thing I want to get deeper on as well.
But I embrace change too. I just want to say that.
Yeah. For sure. I want to get a little bit deeper on, because you mentioned earlier that Black women was the only thing that was defending you when you were growing up as a young gay man. What was that experience like? Like, how did you make it through? And is there any words you could say to any other young gay man out there, trying to figure his life out?
I think when I was that young, I really didn't know I was gay. I was being told I was gay. Oh. And I don't even think the people who were teasing me about being gay knew what being gay meant. It was just a word that was associated with a boy who acted like a girl or had feminine characteristics. I don't think anybody really knew the weight of what that meant about someone's sexuality or what they were saying. So I think when I was growing up, and I have to give this context, we were growing up in a very unhappy house. It was so many various forms of abuse happening in the house too that I was privy to and subject to. that I really didn't have an opportunity to think about who I was or where I was going to go, what I was going to do. Like this essence of who Daniel was, I can say, is strengthened today in my late 30s. When I was growing up, even in my teens and early adulthood, I didn't really have the luxury of going through the life experiences that would shape your character and your experience, because my mom and I was just trying to hustle from one experience to the next. You know what I'm saying? We were just, okay, this is over. Just enjoy the peace and calm that's between, chaotic situations, and just kind of keep it flowing. So I really wasn't in a place to discover my sexuality until I went to university. And that's when, people were out and open about who they were. There were so many different communities and organizations that were supporting people of color and the LGBTQ community. So growing up, I'd say I'm a very different experience in that sense, because I wasn't really paying attention to my sexuality. I was more so just trying not to be noticed. Because the least I was noticed, the more somebody would notice how high toned my voice was. They wouldn't pay attention to the way my hands were moving. And the less I spoke, the more people noticed me and ridiculed me for those things. So I was just trying to disappear, really. And I would say that was really the childhood. So I don't really have that experience as a child of negotiating my sexuality, because I just wasn't given that opportunity. But as I became a young adult, I quickly came into my sexuality quite quickly. The minute I went to university, within 2 years, I knew that I was gay. And it took my final relationship with a woman to understand. And by the way, she and I are like the best of friends now. She just got married a couple of weeks ago. I'm so happy for her. I was at her wedding. So that relationship set me on that path. And then the minute I came to that understanding, the week after, I told my mother. So it was fast and furious the minute it set in. And then it was just about embracing myself and being the best version of myself. So I want to give that context. Now, my advice for young people who are growing up gay is to just give yourself the space to feel and just be with your emotions. You don't have to define yourself or express yourself in anybody else's timing. And I think that's often the pressure that we face. That, I have to tell this person, or I have to do things a certain way, or no, I can never tell people I'm gay because everybody expects X, Y, and Z. A lot of those thoughts and feelings are very fleeting and in the moment. Just allow your experience to be what it is. Be the best version that you can be, and be as authentic as you can, and the right timing will find you. And I think those growing up today are growing up with so much more awareness. They're growing up with so many more positive examples. I didn't know one positive example when I was, or any example for that matter. And they're growing up with so much more tools and resources and visual examples of what it means to be a part of that community. So I have faith that the younger generation can navigate that space a lot quicker and a lot healthier than I did. But I think that would be the best piece of advice, not to operate on anybody else's time. Yeah, which is hard. It's hard. But I've also seen people from the community manipulate and take on certain facets of their identity that unfortunately are not authentic. And I did that as well. Like, I dated a bunch of women when I was young. And obviously it was very different. My demeanor was very different, but that's what I was told I needed to do. But when I go back and I look at it, I was like, oh my God, like I manipulated and led on so many different women without the intention of ever having a relationship. What does that mean? And so the best thing I could do right now is be aware of that experience. But I think sometimes there are people in the community who do it as a way to protect themselves, and it's unfortunate that they end up in those situations. But I think the most they can do is understand that that's what they're doing and then take steps from there.
Yeah,
I might get criticized for saying that, because
why?
People from it's a coping mechanism. It's a way to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And I have empathy for that too.
For sure.
But I think the more awareness you have of yourself doing that, you'll know how other people are being affected.
Okay.
Yeah, which I think is important. I don't want to take away from those people doing it, because sometimes you need to protect yourself depending on your circumstances.
For sure. Man, growing up, I'm a Jamaican, So growing up, like, I remember, pardon me, I remember growing up Jamaican, and I gave my cousin a bottle of lotion, and he was like, Mom, can I pass mine another bottle of lotion? And I was like, what? I don't even understand it. Like, the homophobia was so crazy that I couldn't even imagine, if you were actually gay, like, you'd probably go through it, like, you probably wouldn't be safe. So you'd have to have a front up in order to protect yourself.
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's a lot different for people the ones, from the community who do it very, to do it as a way to protect themselves. You know, and it's unfortunate that they end up in those situations. But I think the most they can do is understand that that's what they're doing and then take steps from there. growing up gay or with their experiences now, it's a totally different world.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, this example of lotion. I think to have a hand cream in your bag or a fragrance was so bad. Now the guys carry it by the dozen.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? And nobody questions your masculinity about it at all. Sure. But if I pulled out a little Vaseline, shea butter out of my bag, the things that people would say, it's crazy. But our perspectives have changed so much, yeah.
For sure. Awesome, man. Now, as we move towards wrapping up, what are some of the things you're working on now?
Oh my goodness, so many things. I am formulating in the early inception of a podcast myself. It's been in the works for a very long time. I think I've kind of given myself the space to really discover what it is I want to talk about. And it's one of those things that I want to use the platform I have in PR to do, is to have conversations about things that nobody's talking about. Another way of giving back. Lots of travel coming up. That's one of the things that I've been enjoying a lot recently is travel. So I've got some trips in Paris and
you were just overseas too, weren't you?
Yes, I just came from Las Vegas. Yeah.
Okay, and before that, you were in
I was in Vancouver.
Vancouver.
Yeah, earlier in the year I was in New Zealand.
New Zealand, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
What's New Zealand like? Is it worth traveling there?
Oh my God, absolutely. I have an affinity for New Zealand, mostly because after I've had, I'm connected to a lot of people who've had very sort of meaningful connections in my life from there. But after my grandmother passed away, I was getting so many signs from New Zealand, and I didn't realize that so much of her family is based in New Zealand, and distant family and close family, and that her home was full of memorabilia and souvenirs from New Zealand that I had no idea. So I always feel like it's close to my grandmother's spirit. And the native culture is the Maori culture there, and they're so the spiritual messaging with their culture, the way they see spirits and the way they see humanity and love and emotion resonates with me very deeply. And the way they see life and regeneration and the opportunities you have to constantly renew yourself in the one life that you're given. I resonate with those messages. And when I go to New Zealand, I feel very strongly connected to them. And so it is a beautiful country. So I would say, definitely for its people and for its beauty. But for me, it has a lot of spiritual resonance.
Interesting. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's actually the podcast. This is what you can't control. So control your grind and control your life. I'm Alex.
I'm Daniel.
Let's show y'all. Peace. Bye bye.